Hello viewers and welcome to yet another live-action commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present a game featuring Alexander Cimadon, positioned to the left, having taken up the reins of our second Tau faction warlord, the ethereal trait Aun'shi, and on the right we have a gentleman named Troels Berthelsen, who instead is playing as our original Space Marines faction warlord Captain Cato Sicarius. We can readily see that our initiative token is currently in the possession of our player to the right, and we've already seen a fair few deploy actions. To the right, we can see that our Space Marine has chosen to ally with Tau. We've got a copy of the 1/1 mobile 2-command icon Vashia Trailblazer, winning him command at that planet, and we also see a copy of the White Scars Bikers positioned at planet number 2. It's a 1-command icon 2/3 that gets +2 attack as soon as a warlord is present at its planet. Aun'shi has a copy of his may as well be a signature support, the Xi'an Orbital City, for a cost of 2. As a combat action, you can move an ethereal trait unit from your HQ to the planet of your choice and then ready it. And as the first deploy action of the game for Alexander, that's going to afford him tremendous flexibility in potentially being able to snipe off multiple economy units each round, as well as just potentially being able to trigger multiple battle abilities. The catch, of course, is that Aun'shi, as with every other ethereal we've seen thus far, has the forced reaction where after they manage to successfully resolve an attack, then they're forced back into your HQ. So even though the Xi'an helps kind of compensate for that weakness, it's not exactly perfect. It'll just allow him an additional opportunity to either show up at a vacant planet and win a battle ability or harass some sort of economy unit. One of the pitfalls of having a great many decks all assembled at one time is that we can see a Mastercraft proxy card on Alexander Cimadon's side of the table there. It's a Vashia Trailblazer, so once again, 1 attack, 1 hit point, 2 command icons with the mobile keyword. Normally I wouldn't feature a match like this that has such spectacular proxies in it, but this was such a fantastic game, I definitely wanted this on my channel. So we've got a copy of Promotion being affixed to that White Scars Biker there, and in some case, if for some reason you've been living under a rock, Captain Cato Sicarius is a 2/6 warlord who happens to generate a resource every time an enemy unit is destroyed at his planet. But we've seen a limited card now from both of our players. We've got a copy of Recon Drones positioned at planet number 3, 2 command icons versus 2 command icons, and in assessing our opening lineup of planets, we see planet number 1 is going to be Farron, the Route, a target non-warlord unit planet. Planet number 2 is going to be Taurus, which rewards players for keeping their unit count lower than that of their opponent in the form of 3 cards or 3 resources, and note that both of our players happen to be matched at 3 units each. Karnath is going to be planet number 3. It's the activate any other battle ability planet, and planet number 4 is going to be Barless, which does a random card discard. Elwith is 5th, final planet number 5. That allows you to take a look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add one of those to your hand, and put the remaining 2 on the bottom of your deck in the order of your choice. So whichever planet Aun'shi ends up being sent to, for instance, we could see Aun'shi go to planet number 1, route that White Scars Biker should he end up winning a combat there, entirely uncontested, and then we could see the Xi'an Orbital City send him back to whatever other planets, so that he could maybe win, say, Barless or Elwith, anything along those lines. And Aun'shi has the built-in ability of conferring the Armorbane keyword to every Tau faction unit you control present at his planet. So something interesting here, I mentioned that Xi'an Orbital City is a mandatory auto-include for Aun'shi. His genuine signature support, Aun'shi's Sanctum, enters play for a cost of 2. You simply use an action to ready any unit that happens to be sitting at a planet with an ethereal trait unit, so whether it's an ethereal or whether it's something else. It just provides a fantastic source of action advantage. The only catch, of course, is that ethereals, once they resolve an attack, they're going to be gone from that planet. So you could have an ethereal attack once, bounce to your HQ, the Xemian orbital city could replace it at that planet, then it could attack again, but then it bounces back to your HQ. So Aun'shi's Sanctum is really best for units along the lines of anything brought in with like a Kauyan strike, where you kind of converge all of your ethereal trait units on one planet for the cost of one resource, or if you've got like a Borkon recruit or something like that attacking for 4, ideally with Armorbane, thanks to Aun'shi being present, that's just a fantastic opportunity. So as soon as Aun'shi starts to put out some additional army units, he might end up becoming a bit more formidable, a combat presence, but for the moment all he's got is a copy of recon drones and a Vashiat Trailblazer. There's no ambush platform for ion rifle or anything along those lines, and we haven't really seen much from our Space Marine faction player yet. Of course, that White Scars biker is pretty frightening, but Aun'shi could show up at Farron and, rout that unit. Looks like we see a copy of Heavy Marker Drone affixed to the White Scars biker. That's going to double any damage that it takes, and that's going to mean that Aun'shi could potentially be hitting for Armorbane 4. So Armorbane, you can still use Indomitable, Iron Halo to prevent that damage. You just can't simply discard shield cards to mitigate it. So where exactly is Cato going to go, and where is Aun'shi going to go? That's going to be Captain Cato Sicarius going to planet number 3, and Aun'shi goes to planet number 1. So he's going to be able to conveniently rout that White Scars biker. Then it's going to be showing up during the following round exhausted with that heavy marker drones associated with it. So let's see, Aun'shi at planet number 1, Alexander's going to relend 2 resources in total. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 card and 1 resource to the right for Troels. Planet number 3 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource, won by Captain Cato Sicarius, and planet number 4 and 5 are going to be pushes here. So this is pretty interesting. Aun'shi's going to be able to win at Farron. He could, he's going to win that combat. He'll bounce back to his HQ. He could, he's going to choose to rout the Vashiat Trailblazer. Looks as though he's going to use Xemian Orbital City indeed to try to kill off that copy of the White Scars biker. So immediately the White Scars biker is going to be able to attack for a grand total of 4. But Aun'shi is most definitely not going to be present at that planet for that to occur, because as soon as his reaction is going to be resolved here, he's going to be gone, whether or not the Vashiat Trailblazer gets obliterated or not. And that is going to be a pretty massive blow. That's a promotion and a 3-cost Space Marines faction unit destroyed, and there's Aun'shi having bounced back to his HQ phase twice, and Taurus is going to be won by Aun'shi, but considering he's got 3 units in play relative to Captain Cato Sicarius' 2, that is not going to be able to be triggered by him. But looks as though Karnath is going to trigger Taurus for Captain Cato Sicarius, so that's going to be a resource token generated upon the destruction of that 0-cost limited recon drones, and then I believe that was 3 resources generated by Taurus. So interesting that he'd go for resources instead of cards. Generally, Cato's weakness is that he doesn't have any kind of, massive amount of card draw. He can accrue a tremendous number of resources. For instance, God, it looks like he's got 11 already, so unless his hand is just absolutely brimming with Space Marines, I'd have maybe gone with cards, but we'll have to see how things break down. Of course, unlike in Octagon, we don't have any clairvoyant, godlike knowledge in regard to what is in these players' hands. So Void Pirate for Cimadon to planet number 5. Captain Cato Sicarius plays a copy of Sicarius is chosen, the signature army unit, to planet number 4. Its action deals 1 point of damage and relocates that Void Pirate. The Void Pirate's assigned damage and shielding, there's no reason to shield, so that is outright destroyed. Looks as though we see another copy of a proxy card sitting out over at planet number 5. I can only assume that's going to be an additional copy of the Vashiat Trailblazer. Looks as though another copy of Sicarius is chosen relocates that Trailblazer from planet number 1 to planet number 2. And that is indeed shielded. We saw a copy of Ion Rifle discarded as shields there, and we've now got a Viorla Warrior Cadre sitting at planet number 1. So for the cost of 4 resources, you do get a 4 attack, 3 hit point, 1 command icon unit, and as soon as an ethereal trait unit, like Aun'shi, touches down on that planet, it will gain the ranged keyword, and thanks to Aun'shi, it'll have Armor Bane in addition to ranged, and that's a pretty nasty combination there. Note that I believe it's only a soldier trait unit. It, of course, is not an ethereal, but thanks to Aun'shi's Sanctum, it could attack twice during the ranged skirmish round, so I can't imagine that Captain Cato Sicarius is going to show up at planet number 1 anytime soon, but I imagine that would be a pretty appealing option for Aun'shi himself, and of course the Xemian Orbital City could relocate Aun'shi to any other planet so that he could take a swing, potentially even kill off this copy of Sicarius is chosen here at planet number 2. For instance, he's got the initiative token, Alexander does. We could see the Vashiya Trailblazer take a swing, then we could see Aun'shi show up and take a swing, but looks as though that, the opportunity to win Karrnath may have just been dashed for our Aun'shi player. Unless he's got, an ethereal wisdom to, okay, I guess he could maybe win the battle at Taurus, then the Viorla Marksman could enter his HQ, then he could play Ethereal Wisdom, the signature event, to give the ethereal trait, then relocate it at Karrnath, but that's a lot of different card effects, and in any case, it looks as though Aun'shi is simply going to send himself to planet number 1. Cato instead is going to go to our planet number 5, which is Aatrox Prime, in order to kill off that presumable, you're not going to be able to kill off that enemy proxy unit if that is indeed a Vashiya Trailblazer, but let's see what exactly that happens to be. We do see Alexander's Vashiya Trailblazer move from 2 to 3, presumably because he's going to be eliciting a battle at that planet, but planet number 1 is going to be a card and a resource to the left for Alexander. Planet number 2 is going to be both of our players breaking even thanks to the Vashiya Trailblazer. Planet number 3 is going to be won by neither player. Planet 4 is going to be 2 cards for Cato, and planet number 5 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource to the right for Troels. So, planet number 1 is going to be won by Aun'shi. Looks as though he's got 4 units in total. Our Space Marine player has 5 units, unless I'm miscounting, and that's going to be either 3 cards or 3 resources. And when you're playing as Aun'shi, you want to be digging for those tricks as deep into your deck as you can. And again, that unit at planet number 5, I believe, just in clicking through this video to give a quick bit of a preview, just to make sure I'm not too confused, in regard to what these proxies are, it may be an Earthcast Technician that was put into play. Otherwise, if it was a mobile unit, it would be moving so that it doesn't end up being obliterated, I presume, by Aun'shi. But there we go, the Xemian Orbital City moves Aun'shi to Barlas. That's going to be a forced card discard, and looks as though if Alexander manages to win 1 additional red planet-type icon, he'll be able to win the game here. So if Aun'shi next turn manages to win at Karrnath, then that could be the game. So Barlas's random card discard is going to be a copy of the 2-cost Area Effect 1 Tactical Squad Cardenas. So next round, what we could potentially see is we'll definitely see Troels take command of the initiative token. Looks like Captain Cato Sicarius is going to blow up that, I believe, Earthcast Technician, so +1 resource for him, and now we're going to move into our HQ phase. Aatrox Prime takes a shot at Aun'shi's HQ. That's going to be 1 point of damage to Aun'shi and the Viorla Warrior Cadre. So, if Aun'shi goes to planet number 1 during the command phase, we could see the Warrior Cadre readied by Aun'shi's Sanctum, then they could attack for 4 ranged and Armor Bane. But then Aun'shi's going to have to do some stuff at that planet. Cato's got a tremendous number of resources to try to shore up planet number 1, make sure that Aun'shi is not going to be able to win that planet, and it doesn't look as though Alexander has more than maybe 5 resources at his disposal with which to try to kill off some of the opposition here, and shattering his hopes and dreams, if he had any, of a very early game victory. We've now got a copy of the Honored Librarian positioned at planet number 1, so that's a 4-2 with a command icon, and it cannot cannot be targeted by attacks so long as there's another unit located at that planet called Honored Librarian. Looks as though we see yet another proxy unit put out to planet number 5, and I believe judged on... Yep, that's going to be a copy of Earth Cast Technician fetching a recon drones to be added to Alexander's hand there. So, again, my slight apologies for the proxies, but I frankly find them very funny. And like I said, I absolutely loved giving this match a bit of a click through and preview. Not that I watched these matches before commentating them, but any Aun'shi match, there's so much going on. It's absolutely fantastic. It reminds me of George Lucas's perspective of the Star Wars sequels, where every frame is just so jam-packed. There's so much going on, and I'm sure all you viewers out there just love the prequels. So, in any case, we've got a copy of Promotion now sitting on the Sicarius is chosen at planet number 3. Our new planet number 5 is going to be Planum, which allows players to relocate a non-warlord unit. There's only one orbital city in place. That's only going to be one opportunity to relocate units. Looks like a copy of Deception bounces Sicarius is chosen back to hand, and that is very interesting indeed. That does get rid of that copy of Promotion, but that's going to allow our Space Marine player the additional opportunity to put that Sicarius is chosen into play, and that means he'll be able to do, yeah, there we go, that's going to be that potential 1 damage relocation effect. So very interesting that Alexander would choose to do that, but I suppose, I mean, look at how crowded planet number 1 is going to be. So if Aun'shi were running a Doom in his deck, that could definitely stand to punish this Space Marine player. Note that it'll be 2 green strongpoint planets that Aun'shi has to win prior to winning this game, and at this rate, if he, I guess even if he starts picking up technology icons, presuming Alexander gives up planet number 1, we may not see a victor in this game until planet number 4 or 5 through blue or green icons, and 4 through red icons, but looks as though yet another proxy card, a proxy of Promotion, I believe, because Calamity is not an attachment, played upon the Ethereal Envoy, Aun'shi's signature army unit located at planet number 4. I believe that's a 1-cost, 1/3 unit. It's an ethereal trait unit, and, it has that same forced reaction of bouncing back to your HQ after resolving an attack, but it gives the warrior cadre ranged. It can be one of many units you all pile upon one planet, thanks to Kauyon Strike, the 1-cost, 2-shield icon, Tau Loyal Aun'shi, may as well be exclusive event. Looks as though that alternate art version of Captain Cato Sicarius touches down once again on planet number 5. He's going to pick off that lowly Earthcast Technician just like he did the last round, kill off another copy, generate a free resource. Aun'shi instead goes to planet number 2, so planet number 1 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource for Troels. Planet number 2 is going to be 2 cards for Aun'shi. Planet number 4 is going to be a grand total of 1 card, 1 resource to the left for Alexander, thanks to that Promotion. And planet number 5 is going to be a card and resource for Captain Cato Sicarius. Looks as though Karnath is going to be won by our Space Marine player. Go figure, Aun'shi didn't try to gun down. 2 copies of Sicarius is chosen, a Blood Angels Veterans, and an Honored Librarian, so I'll be very curious indeed to see if we see a Doomed from Aun'shi. Normally he doesn't run anything quite so expensive, but my oh my, would that be one hell of a play. That would be a bit of a table flip if you lost 12 resources and 4 cards worth of non-unique units. So Karnath, is it going to be a random card discard? Is it going to be Aatrox Prime? Spoiler alert, it shouldn't be Aatrox Prime. That would be a complete amateur move, but it could be Planum. It could be Elowith, so we could see a unit relocated, or we could see a random card discard. Looks as though it's going to be Elowith, so let's take a peek at those top 3 cards. We add 1 to hand, we need not reveal it, and then we put the remaining 2 on the bottom of that deck in the order of our Space Marine player's choice. And note, we don't exactly know what sits in our Space Marine player's hand, but he's got a hell of a lot of cards, and that is a hell of a lot of resources, so good on Captain Cato Sicarius for blocking off Alexander Cimadon's victory condition. He's now got a red and a blue icon of his own. Looks as though he's shuffling his hand up for a random card discard, and that's going to be a signature army unit destroyed. Well, discarded, not destroyed. So, generally considered by our fine community to be one of the better signature units in the game. A Sicarius' Chosen being gone is definitely not a bad thing to see. Aun'shi bounces back to his HQ. Ximian means that he's going to bounce to Aatrox Prime. Very well played, sir. That's going to be Aun'shi triggering Aatrox Prime and count 1, 2, 3, 4 Space Marine units sitting in the HQ there of Troels. Of course, our Blood Angels Veterans is ready, so it's going to basically prevent that 1 point of damage, but the Honored Librarian is going to be softened up. Actually, I spoke too soon. Copy of Crushing Blow discarded as a shield card is going to make sure that that is not a thing, and that is going to be Aun'shi bouncing back to that planet. And now what exactly are we going to see? But Captain Cato Sicarius is going to take a swing for 2, presumably to kill off that copy of the Earthcast Technician. I can't imagine seeing its life being worth the discard of a valuable 2-shield icon card. And let's see, do we see a shield or not? No, of course, the Earthcast Technician is going to be, I guess destroyed. It served its purpose. Its purpose, perhaps, was to just keep Cato far away from everything else. And Cato is going to have the opportunity to trigger Planum. That's going to be a copy of Blood Angels Veterans now sent to Barlas, where sits that copy of the Viorla Warrior Cadre. So as soon as an ethereal trait unit shows up at that planet, that's going to be its ability to attack during ranged, even if, well, I mean, it's always important to have the initiative token, unless I suppose you're playing orcs, and there are a great many situations where it's not great to have initiative, but generally you want to be able to shoot before your opponent, and the Viorla Warrior Cadre, whether it's through range, whether it's through just attacking, it's going to be great, presuming an ethereal trait unit shows up, and I can only imagine that Alexander's going to want to try to win Barlas. I'll be very curious to see where exactly all of these Space Marine units touch down, but this is the first round where we do not see a new planet. Our HQ phase has come and gone. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for both of our players, and now the world is Aun'shi's oyster here, so he could show up at planet number 1. We could see the Warrior Cadre shoot twice during ranged, and if our Space Marine decides to send Cato to planet number 1, he'll potentially be obliterated by a couple of ranged attacks. Aun'shi himself will be able to attack. He might win Barlas, but at what cost? I wouldn't be tremendously surprised if, okay, there we go. I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if Captain Cato Sicarius went to Aatrox Prime, just because, note, that's a red material type icon planet. That's a victory condition here for Alexander. And of course, we see a copy of the Borkon Recruits touchdown at that planet, so should our Space Marines show up there, we could see Aun'shi arrive at that planet and allow the Borkon Recruits to deal out a monumental amount of damage to, some exhausted Space Marine faction units. Very interesting couple plays here. We see Earthcast Technician touchdown on planet number 4, played out by Captain Cato Sicarius. I didn't happen to notice if he found an attachment, presumably not a drone unit, in a Space Marines faction deck. But we see a copy of the signature attachment, the Honor Blade, now affixed to our Aun'shi Warlord. That allows him to grant Armor Bane to every Tau unit, including himself, at a planet, but Aun'shi now gives every other Tau unit a +1 attack value. So if Aun'shi shows up at, say, he's commit to planet number 1 to help the Warrior Cadre, then he's bounced, thanks to Ximian Orbital City, to planet number 3. We could see that Borkon Recruits that did just happen to get relocated to planet number 2 attack twice, for a total of 5 per swing. But that copy of Sicarius' Chosen has now entered play. I believe that's going to be each and every copy of those units we've seen thus far. 1 was discarded, 2 are currently sitting in the HQ, and 1 is now in play at planet number 2. It dealt 1 point of damage to the Borkon Recruits, and it pulled it from planet number 3 to planet number 2, and that means it's all the less likely that Alexander's going to be able to stand up against the enemy Space Marine Warlord should it end up arriving at Aatrox Prime. But whether or not the loss of that Borkon recruits is going to make a monumental bit of difference or not, we do see a copy of the 3/3 Carnivore pack touch down on that planet. It doesn't have any command icons associated with it, but the instant it is destroyed, you end up regaining 3 resource tokens. So, not counting the cost of a card, it's essentially free in some sense, and a couple of interesting plays: recon drones to planet number 5 to trump the Earthcast Technician regarding command, and at planet number 1 we now see an Honored Librarian join alongside that Blood Angels Veterans. And something very interesting indeed is, were it not for the existence of a certain card called Indomitable, we could see Aun'shi show up at that planet. We could have the Viorla Warrior Cadre shoot, kill the Blood Angels Veterans in a single 5 attack value Armor Bane range swing. Then we could have Aun'shi's Sanctum ready it again, and it could wash, rinse, repeat that process to take a shot at the Honored Librarian. Or Aun'shi could kill off the Librarian himself, seeing as how he'll have the initiative token, and even if he didn't, if he was the only warlord present at that planet, he'd be able to kill it off. But I can only imagine that Indomitable is going to interfere with those plans slightly. And if Aun'shi ends up, if Aun'shi's Sanctum ends up being used at planet number 1, then that means 1 fewer attack that we'll be able to see dealt out at Aatrox Prime to try to kill off some of those Space Marine units. Because it looks as though I did indicate, I did guess correctly. Cato goes to planet number 3, Aun'shi goes to planet number 1. So, planet number 1 is going to be 2 cards to the Royal House of Cimadon. Planet number 2 is going to be 2 cards won by our Space Marine player due to his greater, possessing 2 additional command icons above and beyond those of his opponent. Captain Cato Sicarius is going to win 1 card, 1 resource at planet number 4, and planet number 5 is going to be a card and a resource won by Alexander Cimadon. Looks as though the Viorla Warrior Cadre is going to be attacking for 5. During the range skirmish round with the Armor Bane keyword, it's got to be directed toward the Blood Angels Veterans. Are we going to see a copy of Indomitable or not? I hear it's a pretty goddamn popular Space Marine faction card. Do we see it? Is that Blood Angels Veterans going to be wiped from the face of the planet? 4 resources is an awful lot to invest in 1 unit, but if it can just brutally murder these incredible Space Marine faction cards, then good on the, somewhat seldom seen Warrior Cadre here. So what are we going to see? Looks as though Troels is trying to make up his mind. Does he have anything to try to resist this effect or not? Is the onslaught of Aun'shi going to be at all stoppable? Or, who knows? Looks as though our players are currently bogged down in thought. Perhaps Troels is contemplating existence, the meaning of life, and there we go. That's going to be a copy of Blood Angels Veterans Destroyed, and we can clearly see that we've got a copy of the signature event, Ethereal Wisdom, there in Aun'shi's hand. So note that you basically pick one of your units. It gains the Ethereal trait until the end of the phase, I believe, and it also gains a +1 attack value bonus. So we could see that played on the Borkon recruits. Then we could see a Kauyon strike, since we've got enough resources to see that effect. And then that could be that. Looks as though that Honored Librarian ended up being killed by Aun'shi, and the Warrior Cadre sticks around long enough for Barless to result in a random card discard being an Eagle Recruit gone. So that's 1 combat trick that Alexander need not deal with. Eagle Recruit, I guess straight up good card, but it's even better when Ethereals run away from that planet, and they have 1 fewer unit. Then you can ambush a unit into play, and that discrepancy can make a big bit of difference. We haven't seen any gun drones yet, but that could also make a tremendous bit of difference there at planet number 3. Here we go. We start to see some plays. That's going to be an Ethereal Wisdom on that Borkon recruit, so it's going to get a persistent +1 attack bonus until the end of the phase. And now, what exactly are we going to see? Are we going to see a Kauyon strike move that unit or not? Note that because Aun'shi did the attacking at planet number 1, Aun'shi's Sanctum is still ready. So that is going to be that Ethereal Wisdom, another copy also played on the Viorla Warrior Cadre, and then we see the Xemian Orbital City relocate that unit to Aatrox Prime, so it's going to be able to attack. It's not going to have Armor Bane because Aun'shi is not present, but it's going to be able to take a shot for 5 thanks to that Ethereal Wisdom there, and that is during the ranged skirmish round because itself counts as an ethereal trait unit present at that planet. And of course, the Ethereal Envoy is printed as an ethereal. So even though Captain Cato Sicarius himself is a 2/6, he commands initiative at a planet where resides a warlord and no enemy warlord, but, you know, ranged skirmish round is something that Cato's not going to be able to act in. And do we have Indomitables or not? I am just loving this, ladies and gentlemen. So the warrior cadre is going to take a shot at, okay, there we go. That's Indomitable right there. That is 5 points of damage negated. Warrior cadre is readied by Aun'shi's Sanctum. It's going to take another shot. Is it going to be against Captain Cato Sicarius? Yes, it is. And is that going to be a second Indomitable? It is. So that's going to be 66.67 or so % of the Indomitables in Troels' deck now depleted, and it's going to be Cato's opportunity to take a swing. So I can only imagine that Alexander was probably hoping that would have been resolved slightly differently. But Cato takes a swing to try to kill off the Viorla Warrior Cadre, and guess what? Deception means 2 shield value card. 2 minus 2 is, of course, 0. And now it's going to be the Carnivore Pack taking a swing. Are we going to see one of those copies of Sicarius' Chosen potentially killed off? What are we going to see? We've yet to see anybody tap a unit. That is indeed going to be a dead Sicarius' Chosen, so I believe that's 2 copies now residing in the graveyard, and the Ethereal Envoy itself is going to be attacking for a paltry 1, and it bounces back to the HQ, so it definitely removes itself from combat. Note that our first action here is going to be dealt. Okay, so the Viorla Warrior Cadre runs away. It's going to end up surviving to participate in a future combat because the Honored Librarian is going to have an opportunity to attack first, so the Carnivore Pack is destroyed, but that is going to be 3 resources won by Alexander. So really all that the Carnivore Pack did was, I guess, kill off a copy of Sicarius' Chosen, but, you know, I suppose that's probably worth the cost of a card. And then Aatrox Prime is going to fire into the HQ of Aun'shi, and now our 2/7 Warlord has 2 points of damage. The Ethereal Envoy itself picks up a point of damage, and the Viorla Warrior Cadre reverts to a lowly, I believe it's a soldier, and then 1 other trait, but it is no longer an almighty ethereal. It can basically no longer command its fellow Tau to, commit suicide without question, I believe, is how strong the commanding influence of the ethereals is for the rest of the Tau faction. So, HQ phase comes and goes, as I'm so fond of saying. It's yet another instance of 4 resources and 2 cards for both of our players. Looks as though the initiative token now, quite obviously resides in Troels' possession, and it's going to be his opportunity to try to bring back and win the game here. If he can win at Eluith, if he can win at Aatrox Prime, that's going to be him taking control and winning this game. Otherwise, Aun'shi can win through Aatrox Prime and also win through Planum. So will we see our Space Marine win this one or not? Looks as though we see a couple of erroneously still exhausted supports in Alexander's HQ, but a copy of Honored Librarian touches down on planet number 3. That's always something problematic to see. It was either the Honored Librarian or the Blood Angels Veterans. I'm not quite sure which of those 2 units is new. I believe it's the Veterans. But a couple different cards played out by Alexander. We've got a Viorla Warrior Cadre, another instance of a 4/3 unit that's presumably going to be able to attack at ranged at the planet. That's going to be the victory condition, the presumable victory condition for either of our players today. And we also have a Viorla Marksman with an associated ion rifle, so it too is going to have an opportunity to attack for 4, and should Aun'shi grace that planet with his presence, then those units are going to be able to attack during ranged with Armorbane for a value of 5, both, considering the Honor Blade there. And keeping in mind that Troels only has 1 Indomitable left somewhere in his deck, whether he's got it in his hand or not, I guess all of that remains to be seen, but something very interesting. This is about to get very, very, very interesting indeed. Cato and Aun'shi both show up at the same planet. We see a copy of Primal Howl expended for its intended effect. Max 1 per round as you draw 3 cards after being commit to the same planet as an enemy warlord. So, planet number 1 is going to be 2 cards in addition to the 3 from Primal Howl to the right for Troels. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 by, it looks like, our Space Marine player. So that's going to be 1 card, 1 resource for him. And planet number 3 is finally going to be 1 card and 1 resource for Alexander. And let's hope for his sake he drew something pretty damn good. So he's got his supports at his disposal. Aun'shi is going to be ready. There's going to be all kinds of ranged attacks going on at that planet. So, what are we going to see? Cato is going to be our player with initiative, but he's got a Blood Angels Veterans, which all of a sudden isn't quite so scary when you can attack for Armorbane 5 at planet number 1. Our Space Marine has the initiative token, and that is going to be an attack of 2, dealt out by, I guess, Sicarius is chosen, killing off that copy of the Borkon Recruits, so that Sicarius is chosen or the Vashyah Trailblazer should at this point be exhausted, but, you know, it's a small oversight, but it's probably not going to be the end of the world. It's not something like a Blood Angels Veterans that would, under normal circumstances, be able to, you know, block a point of damage if it's ready, that it would not be able to ignore were it to be exhausted. So we're going to see battle, of course, erupt at planet number 2. Elowith is going to be handily won by our Space Marine faction players, so he's going to be able to add yet another card to his hand. I'd be fascinated to know just how many cards our Space Marine player has drawn in this game. I believe I spied an Indomitable in his hand. He's bound to have multiple drop pod assaults, additional copies of Eager Recruits, and all kinds of nasty different stuff. But we could see the Marksman attack for 5. We could see the Warrior Cadre attack for 5 at ranged. We could see the Wounded Warrior Cadre readied by Aun'shi's Sanctum and attack for 5 at ranged. So there's going to be a mountain of damage being poured out onto the opposition here, but let's see how it's all going to break down. Our Space Marine faction players looking like he is going to be absolutely hurting, but of course Drop Pod Assault and similar effects could definitely replace some of these forces. So that's going to be the Viorla Marksman taking a shot. It's base 1, plus 1 from Aun'shi, plus 3 from, well, plus 1 from Aun'shi's Honor Blade, and plus 3 from the Ion Rifle. Total of 5. It's going to go out, kill the Blood Angels Veterans, so that is going to be a destroyed unit. And now what is going to be next? Looks like our Space Marine is just helpless to resist this downpour, this monsoon of, you know, magnetically accelerated plasma fire from all of these ion rifles and whatnot. So, the Warrior Cadre takes a shot, destroys the copy of Sicarius is chosen, and now it's just going to be Cato and the Honored Librarian left. Aun'shi's Sanctum is going to ready the entirely hail copy of the Warrior Cadre. That's going to be an attack of 5 directed toward Cato, and that is going to be the third final copy of Indomitable. So from now on, there's no convenient means of working around these effects. All the Iron Halos and Nocturne Ultima Stormbolters in the world are not going to be able to really spare you from these deleterious card effects here, and I'm not sure if this was premature or not, but we see a copy of the Drop Pod Assault put into play, and this is going to be another Space Marine present at the planet. I suppose he was maybe doing it now, just in case he gets a copy of Tactical Squad Cardenas. Did that Drop Pod Assault actually whiff? I think it may have. So that is going to be, wow. You know, Ouch. Out of all the painful things in the world that can happen as a Space Marine player, it absolutely sucks to have your drop pod assault fail you. Maybe he only saw Earthcast Technicians and Vashyaw Trailblazers or Void Pirates. I don't think we've seen Rogue Traders yet, but that definitely hurts. The Honored Librarian is going to take a swing of 4. That's going to be that dead Viorla Marksman with its ion rifle now gone. Very squishy target, very easy. Prey Aun'shi himself is going to go ahead and take a swing. That's going to be 2 points of armor bane damage assigned to Captain Cato Sicarius, and he himself is going to take a swing, try to kill off, and he indeed does successfully manage to kill off that copy of the already wounded Viorla warrior cadre. Aun'shi can return to this planet at any point, courtesy of the Xemian orbital city, but I would imagine that we're going to wait to actually have that trigger so that Aun'shi can show up, do a little bit of damage without necessarily putting himself in harm's way. So another copy of Drop Pod Assault is deployed. This time we do hit solid gold. It's going to be a copy of Blood Angels Veterans. That's going to be able to take a swing. It's potentially going to be able to kill off that copy of the Viorla Warrior Cadre. Do we see at least a 1 shield value card from Alexander's hand? He's probably got some events that he's considering holding on to and not wanting to ditch. Things along the lines of Kauyon Strike, perhaps. That's going to be a 4-resource unit, Alexander. You're definitely going to want to try to preserve that unit's life, but considering that Cato's going to be the player with initiative, even if the warrior cadre survives to the end of the round, it's just going to have another opportunity for the Space Marine player to kill it off prior to it having a chance to swing. So are we going to see a shield or not? That's a very difficult call, but I think if it were me, I would presumably just let it die, kind of accept the inevitable there. That just kind of sucks. I guess you could save it just so it could retreat, and then it'll show up during a following round, and you could do the Aun'shi's Sanctum trick, and that would be probably worth doing, but, I guess Alexander's got a few cards in hand. He's just got to be thinking right now, what exactly can I get rid of? And there we go. That's going to be a copy of the Ethereal Wisdom. And now let's see, I believe Cato still has resources. Are we going to see an eager recruit or not? Perhaps he is out of resources. Aun'shi returns to the planet thanks to the orbital city, and that's going to be another couple points of armor bane damage dealt out to Captain Cato Sicarius. Of course, Iridial is not a thing in this match, so Cato isn't looking like he's going to get bloodied anytime soon, but this is a pretty close, pretty harrowing battle. So what kind of sucks about this is if the Viorla Warrior Cadre ends up retreating, it's still going to be able to take a shot from Aatrox Prime, and okay, so it looks as though that Ethereal Wisdom was used in vain. That is Aatrox Prime going to be dealing out a point of damage to the Ethereal Envoy and Aun'shi, and both of our warlords have definitely seen better days. The signature attachment equipped Aun'shi still has 4 hit points relative to the 2 hit points associated with Cato. And now it's all going to come down to this. If Aun'shi wins this planet, that's going to be a red material type icon, and he wins the game. If Cato wins this planet, it's going to be a blue technology type icon, and that means he is going to win the game. We've got the infamous duo. We've got Team Rocket sitting there at planet number 1. That's going to be a Blood Angels Veterans, which, shirks a little bit of damage, mitigates damage, and then we also see that Honored Librarian sitting there, which you can't normally attack it, and if you're forced to attack targets like Blood Angels Veterans, that absolutely sucks. But, interesting proxy card there located at the first planet. What is it, you might ask? Well, thanks to my previewing and zooming in technology, I can clearly see that it's a copy of the Earthcast Technician, which manages to fetch a very timely copy of Gun Drones for Alexander, so that could potentially be doing an Armor Bane area effect to kill off the Honored Librarian, kill off a wide swath of units, and we also see an Earthcast Technician played out to the right by our Space Marine player. Looks as though he himself came across a copy of Iron Halo. Normally, players use that for shields, but at this point, you could definitely see that equipped to Captain Cato Sicarius to work as a 4th Indomitable during this final round of combat, but we see an Ethereal Envoy positioned at planet number 1. Now it's going to be up to both of our players to try to fill planet number 1 with as many units as they can. An Honored Librarian touches down on planet number 1, and what is not a good card to play once you've got a goddamn copy of Gun Drones staring you down at the opposite end of the table? It's going to be anything with more than 2 hit points, because note that Aun'shi has the initiative token. What unit is going to be able to do Armor Bane Area Effect 2 and kill off both of your copies of Honored Librarian? So maybe Troels didn't have any better options, but that is essentially pissing away 3 resources in 1 card, and that Honored Librarian is about to just get obliterated. So I'd have personally saved those for combat tricks. Especially considering Alexander had to reveal that copy of Gun Drones. That seems like a pretty painful choice, but let's see how everything ends up being broken down. Aun'shi is going to, of course, grant all units present at his planet a +1 attack bonus thanks to the Honor Blade there, so long as he can remain hale, and we also see a copy of the Carnivore Pack touchdown on that planet, which will be attacking for 4. Something also very important to keep in mind is that the Ethereal Envoy is going to bounce away from that planet into the HQ after it does its attack resolution thing. Then the Xemian Orbital City is going to be able to return it to that planet, and it is going to be absolutely able to obliterate the opposition. So let's see how things are going to break down. Aun'shi shows up at planet number 1. It's going to be 1, 2, I guess a total of 2 command icons for Aun'shi, so Cato is going to win 1 card, 1 resource at planet number 1. Instead, we're going to see 1 card, 1 resource there for Alexander at planet number 2. The initiative token is in Alexander's hand. His first action is going to be that Ethereal Envoy, dealing out that enormously just, man, super disheartening, super dangerous, just incredibly destructive Ethereal Envoy. It's going to be like a Star Killer base here going off, but let's see it. Let's see the Gun Drone Area Effect Onslaught trigger. Do it, Alexander. Tear down that wall. Let's see all those formidable Space Marines blown apart. So there we go. It's not during ranged, but it is going to be Area Effect 2. So, the unit is attacking. While it's attacking, Armor Bane means your opponent cannot use shield cards. Even though Area Effect is damage dealt by a card effect, it's still taking place while that unit is attacking. So that is a lot of dead units. That is going to be 2 copies of the Honored Librarian, an Earthcast Technician, and some other unit was also caught up in the fire. And then Captain Cato Sicarius himself is going to be bloodied. That's 2 points of, well, it should technically just be 1 point of damage dealt out to the Blood Angels veterans, because it's able to prevent 1 point of damage while it's ready. And Sicarius is chosen now as 2 points of damage onto it. So things were looking pretty equal up until about 2 seconds ago, and now the Blood Angels veterans, there we go. So good guy Alexander Cimadon reminding his opponent that the Blood Angels veterans is, has a 33-ish% more HP than it. Whatever. Anyway, the point is, it's going to be time for our Space Marine player to attack. He's got 1 resource. Are we going to see an Eager Recruit? We can see in his hand he's got a couple Nocturne Ultima Stormbolters. Looks like he's got a couple copies of Iron Halo. I'm not seeing any Eager Recruits or anything like that to potentially win him the game here. That's going to be the Blood Angels veterans killing off that copy of the Carnivore Pack, so I can only imagine that that must mean that Alexander Cimadon must not have any shield cards in his hand, or he's simply holding on to those shield cards for a more important occasion. But Xemian Orbital City brings the Ethereal Envoy back to that planet. It's going to do another Area Effect 2 volley and absolutely obliterate the opposition there. And of course, we end up seeing that there was a copy of the Ennui Prelate in Alexander's hand as well. So congratulations to Alexander Cimadon for managing to pilot our second Tau faction warlord successfully to victory. A spectacularly well-played game by both of our players. It was a hell of a match. The proxies were hilarious. Gun Drones put in absolute work, and that was just a magical last battle experience. So those Honored Librarians, during my first play experience, it felt like they were absolutely invincible, but during today's match, they were absolutely anything but. So a huge thank you to Alexander Cimadon for providing me with the opportunity to rehost these videos upon my channel, and this was just a spectacular game. So clearly I had a blast blast watching this one. I hope you viewers at home enjoyed this too, so thank you for watching, and as always, I'll just end this video by saying if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, do consider sharing this content, as the more viewers there are that stumble upon incredible matches like this one, the more people may try out Conquest, like what they experience, join our community, and of course, altogether we continue to send the message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Facebook or on Twitter, and if you'd ever like to be akin to Alexander Cimadon and send me in Octagon or live-action footage of your own, I would be absolutely honored were you to do so, and I'm always happy to plug local gaming clubs or game stores. If you ever feel so inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would encourage you to check out my Patreon page and make maybe $1 or $2 monthly contribution, as each small incremental instance of donation adds up over time. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed one hell of a video. Have a good one, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.